Hi, this is Daniel Harris, and welcome to the Ironbird Podcast. We're running this podcast at the MBAA event in Las Vegas in partnership with Flyhouse. Today's podcast we have on, it's a Tech Talk podcast. This is one of 5, or maybe even more, we're running today. Today's real discussion is going to be about dynamic pricing. And we've got Jack from Flyhouse on here, we've got Antoine from MOOVE, and we've got Vlad from Flex. Flex and MOOVE are tech providers, and I'll let each of you kind of explain what it is. And obviously with Flyhouse and Jack, we've got the Flyhouse app. So we're gonna jump into it very quickly, and then as we go along, I want you guys to kind of explain, your take on things and how your product you think fits in the space. Really, the first question, and Jack, I'll direct it to you, is how pricing of private aviation is changing. Historically, it was what? Just a flat hourly rate, you fly from point A to point B. How do you think that's going to change kind of going forward in this more tech-facing space?
Yeah, great question, and welcome aboard, guys. Glad to be here. I think it has to change. I think we've seen it change, certainly in the last 20 years, last 10 years, and then obviously post-COVID, coming out of post-COVID. I think that the pricing for operators, and I think we talked about this earlier off camera, was 90% of the operators are less than 8 airplanes. Mm-hmm. So from a scale standpoint and moving those airplanes, it's become very, very difficult for them, so they've had to change the pricing model. Even going back to aircraft management, we always did the hourly rate. Now they're doing percentages. So even that's changed. So you're starting to see more and more operators adapt to the dynamic pricing model, moving the fleet, and moving the fleet from a floating fleet to a based fleet, or base to floating. I think you've had to see the pricing change.
Will you explain to us, Jack, the difference between a floating fleet versus one that quotes from a home base?
Yeah, so the floating fleet model started about 15 years ago. The base model is for example, I used to be out of Palm Beach, so an airplane that lived in Palm Beach, left Palm Beach, and it came right back. And then it morphed into, hey, that airplane's available for 3 days. Let's send that airplane to New York, then let's move it to Chicago, and then bring it back 3 or 4 days later. And so the model has changed from, hey, let's get 15 hours out of Palm Beach, to now let's get 40 hours once we leave Palm Beach. Because you're fighting for everybody in Palm Beach or the South Florida area. Yep. And it's no different Van Nuys or Scottsdale or Dallas, right?
What do you think are the biggest barriers to someone, especially a smaller operator, going out of their, getting business out of their home base?
So there's actually 2 things to that. I think it's very difficult for a smaller operator from a marketing standpoint, and I think we've seen it. That's been I remember when I first started, there was 3 brokers in the world. Mm-hmm. Now there's 3,000. Yeah. And so it's because the operators haven't had the infrastructure to scale to grow that. And so they're just marketing. They've got a couple owners in town, and then they've relied on the brokers to get them the what we call filling seats. Yeah. But I think getting the operator moving out of their it's the norm for them. And so we always talk, even around the house here, it's if you've always done it that way, you've got to change the way you think. Because just staying in your little pod in Palm Beach or Van Nuys, that's all you get. That's the only slice you get. You want a bigger piece of the pie. That's a little riskier for operators.
Yeah. Right. Vlad, when you're looking at smaller operators, which is the majority, right? Majority operators are that 10 under. What do you see are some of their barriers to adapting maybe new pieces of technology to get into that dynamic pricing?
Well, it's a multifaceted answer, because you have a few different levels of software adoption amongst these 1 to 10 operators. And it's interesting, the discrepancy on the market. Even if you just take the US as a market, you'll meet 1 to 10 operators that are still not digitized fully. So they're still doing things in Excel and Google Sheets and paper-based and a million other workarounds to having everything digitized. And then once you have everything digitized, you can start automating software, right? You can start creating rules that create workflows that removes the need to have manual data entry and re-enter data, re-look, reassess, so it flows directly, right? That's APIs and all the integrations. Right. And once you have that, you can start looking at the automation level goes towards optimization. How can you optimize your fleet to position it in a way that you win that business as a floating base operator? How can you price more strategically to win those deals? And also exposure. I think exposure relied a lot on just brokers, but now brokers and operators are going to a marketplace, and the better the marketplace, the more you create those matches that can really give life to a floating base operator.
I feel like that feels like a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And then that's where I think when we look at apps and we look at the Flyhouse app, I think that's where, and this we'll kind of do a follow-up question of which one app to rule them all, which app is going to eventually win. Which app is going to allow those smaller operators to not have to do all that, to maybe just get on a good app and make it easy for them, right? And Jack, is kind of going back to you, like, is your goal, you think, with a Flyhouse app to make that transition from an operator's current Excel sheet to, make that leap into an app to bump those hours up?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think from an operator perspective, partnering with Flyhouse, we're here to be an extension of your sales. So an operator that has 8-10 airplanes, they have a sales team. We're not competing with a sales team. All we are is making your life a lot efficient. We're taking away the phone calls, taking away the emails, streamlining that process so that's the time suck that operator. For example, you do one trip, there could be 50 emails, could be 100 phone calls, airplane in position, catering, all that stuff. If we can eliminate all that, man, we just save the operator all that time and allows them to focus on what they really need to focus on, which is their core customers.
Yeah, and operating that airplane. With automation in mind, Antoine, we see automation as a buzzword, and we've talked a lot about it. Where do you see, as you're talking to customers and you're onboarding customers, where do you see the biggest gaps in automation, or maybe the biggest opportunities in automation?
The starting point is always, what the customer wants,
Yeah.
And for instance, if you have, a very limited interface for your customers and there's no real information they can put in it, well, the request is going to be, incomplete. And then, the automation starts in having the most comprehensive requests from the customer, what he or she really wants for this flight. Yeah. So that's why, in MOOVE we built, this AI-powered search, which is, we're happy to announce here at Las Vegas today, which is, talking and just, that's your request, right? You talk, and then directly it transforms for the operator or a broker into a sales request. Yeah. And that's the first thing. And when you talk about automation also, it's about, everyone's telling us, and Jack, really, that's right, it's not competing with the sales team, right? It's you reduce the workload with, real, very comprehensive requests that just reduces, this like useless
back and forth.
Back and forth interaction. Yeah. So if you have a good request, and the automation is the first step to really automate things directly for the flight operations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since your launch of the Flyhouse app, Jack, how have you seen that balance between pushing people into a technology space versus what they've traditionally had, which is usually a guy, right? Jack's my guy. I'm going to call Jack. He's going to get it done. Has that been a hard transition, pushing people into say, hey, use this app? And what's the feedback you've gotten?
Yeah, so I think the feedback has been very positive. I think, but because we're disrupting an industry and changing the way people have always done things, there's a time that it's going to take to kind of move people to that. I mean, listen, we're on our phones now booking cars. Yeah. And who would have thought that we would do that 10 years ago?
Yeah.
I didn't think I was ever going to get an iPhone. I was stuck on that BlackBerry, right? And so I think just being able to kind of transform that. But, there's a difference between, we talk about the apps, a lead gen and actually booking.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, Flyhouse, when we go to an operator, that trip's already booked. The trip's done. We talked about it offline. Yeah. Frictionless. Want to be completely frictionless. And I think that's where the water gets muddied a little bit, because there is so much friction today between the operator, broker, owner, and if we can eliminate that as best we can,
just to second what Jack said, I think it takes a lot of education as well, right? Reaching out to these smaller operators and leveraging the tools, but also opening their eyes to what they can accomplish using the Flyhouse app, using Flex. And we're at the forefront of that every day. Because people often, like Antoine said, they come in wanting to have a very preset way of working. But what they are often not open to, and it takes a lot of work to get there with operators, is to make them understand that they can leverage best cases and trusted solutions that are leveraged on hundreds and hundreds of operators that we have in Flex. So often it's about, and it's the non-sexy work of aligning your SOPs and redefining them and being open to recreating them to enhance your operation, whether it's integrating with Flyhouse using MOOVE or doing all the operational stuff in Flex and the charter sales.
Yeah, it's always a question, when you're disrupting a market, you have early adopters, such as Daniel, let's say.
Yeah.
And, you also have people that are more like conservative. And you need to bring the market to a state of, stability in the solutions.
Correct.
And, solutions like Flex really, like 10 years ago, I think MOOVE couldn't exist, right? Because you need to get the data ready, you need to get really like people accustomed to using like software tools on a very everyday basis. Some would still say, I'm confident enough with paper, right? Because it's more something I'm used to.
Yep.
So really you need to have these people work every day on with a software, and then you can do the vertical integration. So,
absolutely. We all have stories, right? 4.5 years ago I joined Flex, and I was still getting operators on Zoom calls to give them demos of Flex, and they'd be like, wait, let me turn on the camera and show you this whiteboard behind me.
Absolutely.
Can you emulate that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the big things that when you look to push dynamic pricing, auto booking, a big hurdle is airplane owners, their schedules, and pilot schedules. Like, Jack, what do you think is there one fix-all to move someone that has, every time you want to book a flight, you got to call the pilot and say, hey, you golfing today? Or are you watching your kids today? Can we do a charter? Like, how do you move away from that into more of a dynamic auto booking?
So, it's so tough because every operator operates differently. We talk about, even from the FA standpoint, the training programs, we see the future being that, you would have one NDOC a month and have 300 pilots in that NDOC operate under the same standard, and then allow, just like they do in the airlines, these pilots can pick and choose. You've got mom and pop operators that have less than 8 airplanes. They struggle at pilots.
Yep.
So we feel that there's a big opportunity on the pilot side, and you've seen the salaries have just gone outrageous. Used to, the guys fly more, get paid less. Now they fly less, get paid more.
Yeah.
It's the way the industry is. But then it's just finding the quality over the quantity. As you said earlier, calling people, hey, are you available?
Yeah.
The guy has a set schedule, and with the FA, the rules now, you actually have to have set duty times. We didn't have that. Guys in his yard all day, and you call him at 9 o'clock at night. You're going to Vegas, boys.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
hey, you haven't been on duty.
Let's
go.
and so now it's you've seen that change with the rules, and so that's creating a whole nother layer of safety that we hadn't seen, which is obviously the industry needed it. But yeah, it's.
Do you think that's going to move operators to doing fixed schedules and maybe even staffing a little bit higher to cover that morning and then evening shift? Or what's that going to do? What's fixed schedules going to do to airplane availability?
Yeah, so I think now, guys are doing, 10 on, 10 off, 15-15s. I think that the difference is do you have the lift to substantiate extra pilots?
Yeah.
To your point earlier, having 3 different types makes that 10 times harder because, unless you're going to go and spend the money to have another guy typed on another airplane, well, guess what? Now he's going to fly more.
Yeah.
He's going to want more money. Still needs time off. The FAA's response is, hey, you just need 13 days off a quarter. We're giving 13 days off a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's real difficult, but the operator has to manage the expectation with the owner to say, hey, are you in Palm Beach? Are you just floating your fleet? Because you can get more flights.
Yeah.
You got to have more crew. It costs more money.
Yeah.
And
there's that equilibrium somewhere there, right?
Right. What is it?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the industry's trying to figure that out.
It's also smarter ways to roster the crew and how you work with the crew to provide them. And again, that's where you leverage technology, especially as a small operator with limited crew, It's about giving that crew app, in hand to every crew member, building those schedules together, having access to their calendar, their requests, and having instant availability on the crew's availability and their time schedules.
Do you think crew members are the hardest ones to onboard and change their ways?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky with them, but we try to take this frictionless approach to crew members. Yeah. So the crew app needs to be a frictionless space for crew members to have all they need out of Flex and the crew mobile app in one place.
Yeah.
And then you remove a little bit, if it's working for them and it doesn't add extra hassle, because crew members are a little bit allergic to changing anything that adds an extra step.
Yeah.
Then you can get somewhere.
Yeah, I think for us, it's thinking outside the box. So I think like what we did is we give our crews ownership in the company.
Yeah.
That creates alignment.
Yeah.
And if we can get everybody aligned, we use the joke that, that pencil is, $1. Well, you just broke that pencil and you just cost the company $12. Well, guess what? You just cost you money.
Yeah.
And so, thinking and having that alignment throughout the company, I think the crew members have always been the most difficult thing because it's managing the expectations for the owner, operator, and the crew member itself. So you got to manage the 3 expectations. Oh, by the way, you have a customer too. Now you got 4 in there. But I think it's, having the set schedule, having lift where you can justify having more crew members, the same fleet type, all those things are massive factors in changing the way they do things.
You think more operators will move more towards specific fleet type operations and just say, hey, I'm going to be a Citation 10 operator, or that'll just...
Yeah, listen, I think you're seeing more and more of that as the industry continues to evolve and get better and get efficient, especially with the technology side of it. I remember in an old life, I had 49 airplanes. I had 27 different types.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, it's like guy shows up at your door with a Falcon 2000 LX.
You're not going to tell
them?
no?
Okay, I'll tell them,
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, Jet Select had 13 Challenger 300s. I'm like, that would be the ultimate.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, okay, do something, do it really, really well, get the Excels. We see it with Fly Exclusive.
Yep.
We see it with XO when they had the Excel or the 10s.
Yeah.
But again, it's having the massive amount of aircraft in the hopper. Then you got the crew availability that kind of ties right into that.
Yeah. For a pure management company, it's a bit harder to have a pure power play floating base. Because you can streamline that a lot with, like you said, your Brussels customers, same aircraft type across the fleet, and it really makes that a lot more efficient.
Well, to that point, you've seen guys book a trip. I'm booking a mid-jet.
Yeah.
I'm not booking a specific.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, hey, for that mid-jet, you're getting X price, but it could be 3 or 4 mids because we have a bunch of mids in fleet and we don't have the same type. Then you have these guys selling the jet cards where they have only Excels. Yeah. So then you get that jet card where you're getting a specific airplane every single time. Then it just comes down to customer expectation. What is the customer getting?
Yeah.
The whole bait and switch with the mid. I don't want to fly on a Lear, but I want the price XYZ.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can't have the price.
Yeah.
You can have both. We always say, hey, you get 3 things, right? Obviously, you get safety, but you want comfort or you want price.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
absolutely,
it comes down to that.
Yeah, like if you add like a complexity with the types of aircraft, it's already complex enough to give a good pricing, right?
Yeah.
And if you add this complexity layer, I mean, you have 10 aircraft all the same, then you can, the floating base makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Then it's just one variable in the system. If you add the different types of aircraft, and in the end, what you really trust, what we really think is that business aviation is for business purposes, right? You want to fly from point A to point B with the most convenient and maybe a cheap price as well.
Yeah.
And if you add this layer of complexity of, but do you want, a Citation XLS, a Falcon 2000 XLS or LXS Plus, it makes, it's something in the end that makes also the dynamic pricing impossible because, it's too many variables for this small system. So,
if you look at commercial travel, the 99% of people aren't booking a commercial flight because this is on this Airbus or it's on this airplane.
Absolutely.
They're booking, hey, this operator, I like Delta, or I trust these guys, and I like their first class cabin, or they always provide a cabin. I agree. I think the complexity in specific airplane types is only adding more of that friction into that process of what if charter really wants to grow, it's the goal of that removing that friction.
I think historically it comes from, aircraft owners. They would like own the markets, and then obviously when you're an aircraft owner, right, it's super important. You want a Gulfstream, you don't want a Falcon, for instance, right? But when it comes down to charter, it's a totally different state of mind, right? You just want to fly from point A to point B, and that's it, So it's not really the same feeling with the aircraft. So,
but you look at the Uber app, right? You look at the Uber app now. Now there's 20 different options. Where there used to only be 3.
Correct.
And so you're seeing it there. It's like, okay, this is the next wave.
You still need to standardize within tiers, but 100%. I think if you have the right set of filters, then you can do a lot.
The thing is, it's information designed for the customer, right? Comfort, Excel, standard, shared. It's not about you as an aviation passionate. Like it's not about what's the type.
Sometimes I think we overthink it as people being in aviation of like, oh, they want all this information. It's like, no, they don't want the information. They just want to get from point A to point B at a fair price and safely. That's tends to be what the consumer wants. They want simplicity. One of the last questions that I think is interesting, and it was kind of the title of this chat, is AI. And where do we think? And I'll pass this to you first, Vlad. Where do you think AI is going to have the biggest impact in charter? And do you think it's going to eventually remove jobs from the charter industry?
Right. So for now, it's very incipient, right? And we've tried to leverage everything we could for the first steps to enable AI as part of the process. So every flight request that comes in through a manual source, an email, for instance, Flex runs that through its AI engine and builds that into a flight request, fully filled out, ready to be quoted and priced. And that's where I think you need to look at the shift of the mentality of that charter sales team. And Jack was touching on that earlier. It's not about taking away their job. It's about what kind of charter sales team you have and what is their focus. Because the idea is to give them better tools to spend more time in quality interactions with customers. And if their mindset is that they need to have control on certain specific aspects that are irrelevant in the context of a pricing engine with an AI layer on top of that, then you have very comical stories, which we have plenty of across the world. And at Flex, we have a big Rolodex of these funny situationals with the head of charter sales being woken up at 2 a.m. to approve pricing, where it's really not needed in 2024 to have that function and to wake up your CCO in the middle of the night to say, yes, that's fine. Because he's not going to make a better decision. He's going to go on a gut feeling, right? And you need to remove that layer of the charter sales team who thinks their gut feeling is better than the data and the analytics and the predictive data that you can leverage with tools like Flex or like with MOOVE, where we have BI integrated in Flex, right? So your whole data analytics are there, which can enable you to create predictive scenarios, right? And that's another layer to dynamic pricing that you need to factor in, is having historical data to create predictive analysis. Once you have all of that, you can really do a lot.
Right, but it's how we've always done it.
Exactly.
I mean, so then it's being able to give up. What are you giving up?
Correct.
Well, I'll give up this to give me more time. And so it's changing that way of thinking of how this. We've done it this way our whole lives. Now it's coming in, and I think there's a threat, as to your point of taking away jobs. But I think it's how do we make it more efficient?
Think of AI, like a hammer. Either you're not confident enough, and you need a hammer to build faster aircraft. And you don't think the market is gonna be big enough, and you don't want to produce more aircraft. Either you want to have this hammer and build faster. That's the thing. AI will never replace jobs, right? Unless you're really not confident in the size of a market, right? But if you're confident, just handle this hammer and build faster. That's what we really think.
I think the pricing, dynamic pricing, will make sense. I think there'll never replace that personal touch, which is what is one of the most important things in private aviation. To be at an airplane, to shake someone's hand, to know that I've got Jack's going to take care of me, right? And I think that's always going to be a part of this space. I just think that being able to just talk into a phone and say, hey, I need a price to Palm Beach to Aspen, or having the system read an email for you, or really I'm waiting for someone that says, hey, I need to remove this passenger and update this passenger. That shouldn't have a person typing saying, okay, let me go remove Susie. I'm going to go email the crew, hey, Susie's gone. Yeah. It's like the AI should take that, remove that passenger from the manifest, and update the manifest automatically and send it to everyone that needs to be updated, really. That's where I'm looking for AI to do a lot of that manual process, remove a lot of that manual back and forth, catering, flight following, even that predictive modeling. If you see you're the second flight of the day and the AI sees, oh, that airplane is leaving from Aspen, here's the Aspen weather, oh, we're getting flow delays already, hey, that's going to delay this flight. Maybe I'm going to move my schedule around now automatically because the AI can predict that it's a higher percentage of delay. Yeah. So now instead of me arriving at the airport being like, where the hell's my airplane?
Right.
AI has already moved that schedule line, or at least notified you. Hey, Jack,
right.
This airplane's in Aspen, there's some delays. Your flight in 5 hours may be delayed, just a heads up.
Well, and would you be able to catch that? Because in today's world, you're on the phone doing something else.
Yep.
You've got 4 or 5 things that you're working on, and you're not going to catch that.
Yeah.
So having that extra assistant, what we call assistant, is being able to help that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on today. Big shout out to Flex and to MOOVE. Will you guys just give them your, if someone wants to contact you, what's the best way to get in contact you?
Our website. Our website is the easiest place. We're an aviation management software. We really try to do everything from the flight request all the way to blocks on and all the crew data. So we go through all of the heart of the operation. And it's really a comprehensive tool. Jack's team brought it on board and they're implementing it. They're in the final phases. So yeah.
They're real excited about it.
What about you? How are people, who are your clients and how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so flymove.com, you can simply look at all our great white label solutions for operators, brokers, flight departments, or just try our new search AI-powered search module and just play with it and how great it is. Yeah.
By the way, there's 2 O's in MOOVE.
Yeah, there's 2 O's.
Yeah, I should tell them that.
Yeah, there you go.
And 2 X's in Flex.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
And you know where to find Jack. You can always find him at flyhouse.us.
.us.
Flyhouse.us. You can download the Flyhouse app as well. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.